Good evening, everyone. It's a great honor to be invited here by Gerhard and by the GIPS? GIPLS. Okay.
Yeah.
and to be sitting with other distinguished panelists here. So before I go on, I'd like to know how many of you here have pending application or patent or trademark in China? Okay, that's a pretty decent pool. Let me give you a very brief history of China patent, and then we're talking about a couple of issues why you want to enter China. Unlike the Chinese history, which runs over 1,000 years, which is much longer than the United States, right? But the patent law itself is really young. U.S. has only more than like 200 years of patent history, where China only has about 30 years, period. So the patent law itself did not exist before 1985. So basically, there were no patent application, nothing in China before 1985. Starting from 85, after China opened its door to the world, China began to have the patent system in place, and over the years, there are 3 amendments over the past 30 years. But let me give you a number right now. Last year, the total patent filing in China exceed over 2.5 million applications. Out of 2.5 million, 1/3 goes to design patent, about 1/3 goes to utility model applications, and 1/3 goes to invention patent, which is similar to United States patents. I'm not sure. I think in terms of the real invention number is equivalent, probably a little bit more than United States by this point. So imagine the country starting from 0 and all the way to current stage with double digits every year. So it's a country that is no longer, in your mind, it's going to say, why we need to file, protect my IP there, right? But a country is no longer a one that 30 years ago that start copying the Western goods and stuff. The country began to put a huge amount of investment in innovations. If you look at Huawei, if you look at ZTE, if you look at Alibaba, which went public in the U.S., and a lot of internet IP sales, there are a lot of improvements, including pharmaceutical area as well. So for U.S. company today, if you see when we file application, whether in the U.S. or in China, you think about what are the parameters you will consider in order to file the application or protect your intellectual property rights. I think first one coming to mind is going to be market size, right? If the market size is too small, you say, well, my investments are about so many tons of millions of dollars where the market is small. It does not worth it. So I don't think we need to mention about the market size over there because the GDP itself will surpass the US. It's probably a matter of years. The other factor which is very important is the enforcement. If the market size is huge, if the enforcement is weak, then you're going to say, well, even though I file application, file IP rights, what the hell, it's not be protected. Where in China today is a very, very different story in terms of enforcement. Many years ago, even the patent law was enacted. Pharmaceutical composition itself is not patentable subject matter. Today, when you look at the patent law, which originated from German system, is a combo of German law and also United States Supreme Court decision, actually. That's how I view that in terms of law and patent aspect. In terms of enforcement, even though you arguably, you can argue there's some local protectionism in the local courts, but once you move up to the high court, intermediate court, where the foreign entity IP rights were adjudicated, you will see a very rich experience in the judicial system. You will see the efficient enforcement, but in the court and enforcement of the decision. Even though what bothers a lot of American companies is first of all is we call it damage. The remedy for IP infringement is very low in China. The issue is not about remedy, it's about injunction, which you stop infringing activity rather than ask the infringer to pay money to you. Where in the US, we are talking about a huge amount of damage. That's one thing. The other thing is a lot come from small goods in terms of like, bags, software piracy, and movies, DVDs, which is, this one, I kind of see that it is tough because these are made by mom-pop shops, which are very movable. They move around. They're not like heavy industry, not like chips manufacturer or pharmaceutical industry where you need a huge amount of investment. You can chase these people down. Where the mom-pop shop, they move around. And they can turn things overnight, like bags. So it's really hard, even for the government to try to enforce that, it is difficult. So there are areas need to be improved, but there are areas which has been improved a lot. For example, and also a lot of cases in China in terms of enforcement, if it's a good result, there are very few publications. And if it's a bad result, you will see a lot of publications. Oh, the China is in favor of local protection. Sometimes when we look at case, we say, well, you're managed by your attorney over there. Yeah. So, and for example, one of good cases, is say Pfizer Viagra case. Viagra, you know Viagra, the active ingredient of Viagra is called sildenafil citrate. That component was manufactured by 13 Chinese pharmaceutical companies before the Viagra patent was issued in China. And then these 13 companies filed a kind of a patent invalidation case in China against the patent. So the patent is invalid. It went through 2 years period. Eventually, the China High Court support the validity of the patent, so the patent survived. So by this point, the decision became very clear. Injunction means these companies need to shut down their manufacture. Some of them went bankrupt because of the enforcement of that decision. So that just give you one example in terms of enforcement side that it's improving a lot since the beginning, and also it's improved partially because the incentive and also direction of the whole country moving from manufacture copycat into innovation, where a country can really benefit from its own invention as economic result, then the country has all the incentive to protect its own. Where at the beginning stage, if the country has nothing, then it will be very reluctant for entire system to protect foreign goods or foreign IP. So this is how I see, even from economic perspective, where the country is indeed moving towards the enforcement side, partially because the domestic industry is moving up. And once you see a lot of domestic industry and domestic company fighting with each other, you will see the maturity of the patent system, which benefits the foreign entity in the litigation in China. So that's the enforcement side. And the other side you have to think about is in your business side, right? You can say, well, if you have invention even here, do you want to attract money into an investment? And what's your exit strategy? Means that, if I have company move forward, what is my exit strategy? Where I'm going to sell the goods, or whether I'm going to sell my company to a big company. Whether through investment, attract additional investment, or sell your company to a big company, then the China IP become important part. We have done deals over the past few years that the Chinese investor began to look into inventions in the US. They began to invest in US company equity, and as well as, and in return, they want the China rights. So, well, they're gonna hook up with US equity, US company, part of US company, and they want the Chinese rights back, first thing. Second thing is, the big company, once you move your company to the next stage, you want to sell the company, acquired by a big company. Having a China rights, which has a big market there, will increase significance of your value over there. So these are factors you can consider, and also we can talk about other issues in later panel discussion since my time's up. Think about the future as well, because very few people, 15 years ago, you would say China become today's China. And China is moving towards a direction which is very pragmatic in the sense where the IP worth protection, it's moving to that direction. And so today, if you do not file there, and then look at 5-10 years down the road, what you could have missed for your inaction today, because of market size, because the improving enforcement, because your manufacturer, because all the monies that can be accumulated for both in terms of investment and in terms of exit of your own company or your own investment. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, James. You raised a lot of questions